So, first up, Jed Van Iersel is, what's your title, mate? Decommissioning Manager with Liberty Industrial. Jed's going to kick us off with, I guess, a story about Liberty and the work they've got going on. So, over to you, Jed, please.
G'day. All right, so just want to, our presentation today is just basically just wanted to share some of our key learnings on some of our projects happening throughout the region and also internationally, and obviously that escalation and rapid growth in the industry and the lessons that we're learning along with it. Firstly, a bit of a knowledge into country there. So in the spirit of reconciliation, Liberty Industrial acknowledges the traditional custodians of the country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. These are the lands that we work to heal and the people that we listen, reflect and share with throughout our decommissioning journey. We pay respect to the elders past, present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders peoples here today. So a little bit, just a quick intro to Liberty. We're 15 years old, founded here in Australia. Initially founded in that sort of early closure consultation feed study area, looking at the asset liability for closure projects. And that moved on to this more the nuts and bolts of the early contractor involvement and feed studies, getting ready for the actual closure, and obviously into those activities through the execution, which we get the nice videos from, which is all that demolition, high reach, explosive and cut and pull methods, and all the associated decommissioning activities that happen with that, the decontamination associated with asbestos and hazmat removal, and then afterwards the rehab and remediation. We're obviously, like I said, headquartered in Australia, headquartered in Sydney, 15 projects at the moment happening around the region here in Australia, of which there's 3 decommissioning projects. And also we've set up an office in the UK just recently in 2021, where we've got 2 decommissioning projects happening in northern Scotland, one in Nigg on the east coast and one at Kishorn Port in the west coast of Scotland there. So one of the only sort of contractors down here in Australia where we're exporting some decommissioning resources over to the mature markets in the North Sea. So my synopsis here in my chat today is not revolutionary. So you'll see here some of these points here are everything that we know already. There's a rapid growth in the industry, and with that become the challenges and opportunities with that. And that's pretty much what we're saying there. So obviously there's a big upspike in activity. There's a big focus in renewable projects and the transition to renewable projects. Therefore, there's a big spike in decommissioning projects that need to happen to allow that transition. There's also an increased heightened focus on the growing volume of materials and the effective and responsible removal of those assets. There's obviously subject to scrutiny with regulators and associated ESG reporting activities and those stakeholder engagement sessions that happen around that as well, and our social licence to operate. Obviously these demands are reshaping the priorities for these decommissioning projects. Obviously initially there was a big focus on closing well, but closing fast and closing in the cheapest manner. These focuses now really changing to focus on those maximising the actual benefits of the closure and the associated impact reporting that goes along with that, so we can actually measure that success. So therein lies a robust strategy is absolutely vital to navigate this moving landscape and perform these projects efficiently and effectively. So that's what I wanted to sort of capture what I was trying to say earlier, but we're looking at sort of leveraging some of our international and national experience on our current decommissioning programs, so we can use to elevate or optimise some of the programs moving forward within the industry, not just for Liberty, but within the industry as a whole. So I've grouped just some of the projects that we're doing here in Australia, and there's a mix of challenges and solutions there from some of those projects. So a couple of projects, one in Onslow at the moment for 7R, the TVI platforms. Another one just kicking off very shortly at AMC for the Campbell platform decommissioning project, and some work on Barrow Island, preparing for some trials and decommissioning planning studies. So some of the challenges there that we've seen to date, obviously Onslow's a pretty small remote town. We've set up a facility there with our partners over there, OMSB, It's a very tight little town. It's very restricted with accommodation, very limited accommodation. As the programs move to the right, so do the onshore decommissioning programs, and we need to build that robust and depth in planning to allow for that movement. AMC as well, so there's constraints down there. It's a well-established port, great to work in, but it's a very busy port and it's limited land use, so therefore we need that early engagement and understand when the assets are coming in so we can book those facilities, and also those lead times that we need to book those other assets, like you can see there with the cranes and the SPMTs. They're assets that are utilised across the spectrum of industrial projects, and they're heavily utilised assets that need a lot of planning to lock in their availability. Another challenge is obviously the growth of the industry is outpacing the ability for the regulator to comprehensively understand the requirements that are required to licence the facilities, but also allow other stakeholders the engagement and collaboration that they need to understand what that means for the community and also state or federal development projects. So some of the solutions that we've come up with there, and it's, once again, there's no revelations here, it's pretty simple stuff. Early engagement with the onshore reception centres and understanding and other key stakeholders within the projects. And that early engagement, we talk about at all these conferences, the C word, collaboration, but that collaboration can't happen without the E word. The engagement needs to happen first, it needs to be early, and it needs to be a listening opportunity at first, where you just sit and listen to all the project stakeholders and all the proponents within that project to understand what their key drivers are for success on the project, and that enables that collaboration after that. Obviously, like I said before, the early planning that's required to lock in those assets as well. We need to plan for and build redundancy and capacity in our programs to allow for, for instance, the project at the moment, we've got a cyclone spinning around up there. We've got all these assets on hire up there, so we need to build redundancy in those programs to allow for that scope movement and adjust accordingly. Another unique solution that we come up with Onslow, which was quite unique that I haven't seen before, but so with that movement with the program, the offshore contractor was delayed a little bit, which moved the onshore program. The town filled up, there's no accommodation in town anymore, so we had to look at some new and novel ways to accommodate our workforce, looking at ferries, parked offshore and ferrying people back and forth and all sorts of things, and went through a myriad of risk assessments, and what we've come up with, we've actually accommodating our team on Thevenard Island, on the Mackerel Island Resort, and we've actually hired 2 planes to fly our people from the island to the mainland to do their work for the day, and then fly them back to the island at night time. So now we've got a culture of a demolition or decommissioning workforce that's used to travelling on private planes now. So we've got a bit of a Kanye crew happening there. Some of the outcomes there as well is obviously we've established a brand new facility, or a newly licensed facility specific for decommissioning, and the associated supply chain and suppliers underneath that to make that project happen. We've also gained a greater understanding of what the facility specifications are required for decommissioning, and what that looks like as we start to scale up into larger and larger projects, larger and larger assets, and repeating that activity again and again. Another one is obviously that early engagement and that allowing that effective collaboration with the ORC and other project stakeholders. Moving on to the project up in Europe, or some of the projects in Europe. So as you'll see there, there's very similar themes running through this. Once again, a very mature market. There's been decommissioning happening in the North Sea, as you know, for 20 odd years. But we're seeing some recurring themes happening there with that interface with the regulator and community groups and alike, and ports as well. It's a really remote location, so this is just focusing on the Kishon port, the Northern Producer decommissioning project happening at Kishon. It's a first of its kind in that region. It's a first of its kind as far as methodology for a float-in and explosive demolition. And it's also, we're really constrained with some of the differences and nuances with the environmental regulations there's differences even between the UK environmental regulations and the Scottish SEPA regulations. And what we found with that engagement with the regulator, we've really found that the framework that they've got is really, really good. It's robust and it's built on lots of history. but it's not fit for purpose for every prospect. So it's also another challenge is it's been a pretty fast-tracked program. I don't know if people know about it, but it's another one that was similar to the Curlew, where it moved around a little bit. There was no facility to receive it, and it's been a pretty fast and expedited program for execution. Solutions, once again, so that careful planning and detailed strategies to allow the project to succeed, and building some robustness in the program to allow scope movement. Regular and structured engagement with the regulators and the local community. So this is one thing we keep talking about, but we've actually set up, we have our regular engagements with the community and with the stakeholders, but we've also set up some WhatsApp groups with the local community as well, just to keep a bit of a live tracking engagement with the community. So any movements for trucks or different bits and pieces that are happening on the project, we'll send out a message to the community. And there's also some other opportunities with that too. So any leftover material that we've got for bedding and stuff like that, if people need driveways redone, we'll put that on that WhatsApp group too, and helps with that engagement with the community. What we've also done too is acknowledge that we're not going to do everything right on this project. It's the first of its kind, and we're learning along with the regulators and the rest of the project stakeholders. So we really wanted to build a really robust lessons learnt matrix that captures those lessons, which run into not just like a normal project lessons learnt matrix which stays in the project folder and never gets looked at again. We wanted to keep it into a live document, so we've got a live sort of decommissioning document within Liberty that we're tracking all the lessons learnt on our Australian projects, projects in the UK, and other decommissioning projects that were happening around the world, that will roll into a live document that we look at pre-contract phase. So it's obviously that first opportunity to influence the project, so we can roll that into some of our tendering and pre-contract work as well. Some of the outcomes, once again, we've developed a really robust and constructive local supply chain. They're really good. They're really on board. There's lots of opportunities for local content, and set up some local companies there as well. So we've set up a company that supplies us excavators, and we've got a training company that we've set up as well that actually trains some of our people for cleaning and whatnot. Another key outcome is the waste management optimisation that we've seen on this project. We looked at the Curlew project, and what happened. I don't know if many people know about it, but it was an FPSO up in the North Sea that once again bounced around a few ports. End up being about, and that says $1 million, but that's £30 million British pound liability there to clean the asset from norm post it being ceased of production. So we saw that, and we had a lot of engagement with the owner, the asset owner, and said, look, as much as you can clean it while the thing's still connected offshore, we'll optimise that program onshore, and we've seen that rate there. So obviously £30 million initially for the Curlew. We're up to just getting up to £1 million for the Northern Producer, and we've been removing norm now for about nearly 2 months, and we've only removed 150 kilo of norm impacted material, where there could have been up to 500 tonnes worth of norm impacted material if that wasn't happening. And once again, obviously the outcome is there as we're implementing these learnings into future projects in Australia and globally. Look, there's no, once again, just to finalise this, there's no revelations here, but we've seen these strategies that have helped deliver those key and experienced workforce. You don't go to seek and find demolition or decommissioning engineers. They don't exist. So we've really seen that as a unique opportunity to grab multi-skilled workforce. We're grabbing civil, environmental, petroleum, subsea engineers, structural engineers with naval access as well, and really building those project teams that have a multifaceted approach. The E word again, engagement. It's really that effective early engagement with the communities, and it needs to be early, it needs to be consistent, and it needs to be leader to leader. That's what we've really found. We've really focused on those 3 points. We're talking to the community leaders, or the captains of industry, and the captains of the community. So that engagement needs to be respective to the project level as well. It needs to be leader to leader. It needs to be early and open up that pathway to collaborate for the project further later on. And another thing we've seen, we'd really like to push forward, and it's another point that's come up in the CODA, a decommissioning hub study that Rudy and his team at Ken have put forward as well, is establish and leverage some multi-agency working groups to expedite some of the improvements to regs, guidelines and policy to once again maximise not just the project facility stuff but also maximise the evolution of the decommissioning value chain onshore. I made it with 2 seconds to go. How's that?
Brilliant.
Thanks,
very
mate.
much.
Thank
Thanks
you.